Hello and welcome to today in the news on Vanguard Live. I am Precious Chikudi. We begin with the front pages of the papers this morning. Starting off with Vanguard. Vanguard is leading with minimum wage as working on what is payable, and that's coming from NGF. Rider says 37-member tripartite committee still consulting, assures of looking into remuneration of state judicial officers, infrastructure of courts. Labour justifies the 615,000 naira wage demand, gives breakdown. Counters government on May 1st commencement date for new minimum wage. And of course, we can see a photo story showing a mayhem in Lagos, scenes of a violent clash which erupted among traders at Lepo Market on the Lagos-Abeokuta Expressway with multiple shops and goods set ablaze. This happened yesterday. On page 8, press freedom crucial to democracy, good governance, and that's coming from NGE. Resident doctors protest shortage of manpower orders in Kogi State. Petrol scarcity, long queues linger despite federal government's assurances. Okwama court adjourns till June 4th for hearing. IPOP declares sit at home May 30th to honor Biafra's hero. Our stories above, we have NDIC raises deposit insurance coverage by 900%. NSA orders enforcement of cybercrime law. You can read that on page 8. And Obaseki accepts Vanguard Award, gives reason for Edo Best Initiative. Lastly, on the front page of Vanguard, Lagos Calabar Coastal Highway, federal government allegation divisive, distracting, and that's coming from Petrol. We take a look at the Guardian newspaper. The Guardian is leading with Nigeria on professional football league. It's a big story. You can see that on pages 4 and 5. How dodgy officiating, complicit club officials, supporters ruin games. And NGE task National Assembly on better deal for journalists. CSO demands the suspension of officials, party members facing corruption trial. Labour defends a 615,000 naira wage proposal as state review fiscal capacity. Petrol scarcity, long queues, dry pumps remains despite federal government's assurances. What press freedom day? NAS 6 release of detained journalists. NDIC raises maximum bank deposit insurance coverage to 5 million naira. Victim lose of 17.67 billion naira to fraudsters in 2023. And lastly, on the front page of The Guardian, 2 army officers face court martial over bombing of 100 in Kaduna. We take a look at the Nation newspaper. The Nation is leading with states will pay only sustainable minimum wage, says governors. Rider says a subnational to abduct justice sector summit resolution. And there's a quote that says we are reviewing our individual fiscal space and the consequential impact of various recommendations to arrive at an improved minimum wage we can pay sustainably. Petrol scarcity persists in cities. Army move against ambush killing of troops. Stories above on page 5. Police parade mastermind of Kaduna Abuja train attack. Binance chief's money laundering trial stalled. And a new twist in Olubadan as the kingmaker Dodger disagree. Intrigue keeps Olakuleyin waiting. And that's how we can take on the Nation. Let's take a look at the Punch newspaper. The Punch is leading with fuel supply. 9,000 marketers may lose licenses. Rider says Ipman begs NMPC not to delist operators from sales portal to avert fuel crisis. Queues persist as more filling stations open for sale. Pump price drops marginally. Police stumble on drug den after Lagos market fracas. Under bridge apartment, ejected tenants may face prosecution, and you can read that on pages 4 and 5. London sword attack. Federal government condemns Nigerian British boy's murder. Police allays fear as IPOP declares May 30th seat at home. Stories above. Federal government warns saboteurs as power generation rises to 4,800 megawatts. Government borrows 11 trillion naira via bonds, T-bills in 4 months. EFCC to move against schools charging dollars. And lastly, on the front page of the Punch newspaper, 615,000 naira pay of governors demand sustainable minimum wage. That's how we can take on the front pages of the papers. Join us after the break. We'll be right back. Alright, welcome back. If you're just joining me, still today in the news on Vanguard Live, I am Precious Chukudi, joining to talk about some of the stories On the front pages of the papers this morning is Mr. Rotimi Ajayi, former regional editor, North Vanguard Media Limited. It's good to have you join me this morning, sir.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
I would have asked you, well, it's not raining where you are, but it's raining where we are. So, I mean,
it's raining,
and we're excited about it because we've been begging for this rain to come.
It's raining where I am too. I think the rain is. We are in the same rain-belt environment.
All right, let's delve into what we have, and of course, we're talking about the minimum wage, and the 36 state governors under the aegis of the Nigerian Governors Forum (NGF) have disclosed that they are reviewing their individual fiscal space as a state government, and the consequential impact of various recommendations geared towards arriving at what they describe as an improved minimum wage they can pay sustainably. And this is coming from the backdrop of NLC asking for 615,000 naira as the new minimum wage. What's your take?
Well, I think it's high time that the minimum wage in Nigeria is reviewed. But it's been a long time. I think it was around 2019 that we have that we had in place. The current one that is about 30,000. But even the 30,000 naira was not properly implemented across board. Why it is desirable that we should improve or review the minimum wage and bring it up? I think there are more things to be done, which I think the governors said they are addressing, but I'm not sure whether they are really addressing it, because in almost 1 year of many of them in office now, we've not seen any tangible review in terms of the federal component of the Nigerian Federation. If you talk about minimum wage, you say, okay, fine, let's take the baseline that was given by NLC, which is about 615,000 naira. If you look at it, you cannot template where it is the minimum. Any state can go, that's the base that, okay, you can't go below this one, that's 615,000 for every state, for any state. Now, if you look at it, what are the mechanisms? There are questions to be asked. The first one is that, what are the mechanisms? Let us assume that, okay, if the federal government eventually says, okay, fine, we are going to make 615,000 to be Nigerian national minimum wage, which means that a state like Kogi State, I always like to use Kogi as reference because Kogi appears not to have done anything tangible in terms of actualizing its potentials in tourism in terms of tourism and agricultural productivity. But when you look at a state like Kogi State or Kebbi State or Ekiti State, you understand what is the financing capacity that will make them to be able to pay this minimum wage of 615,000 naira for their civil servants. We need to take note of that, because when you look at those that are called workers, it's not only the civil servants that are workers. The civil servants, yes, they are workers, but you and I, we are equally workers. We work in the organized private sector. Okay, and what is the mechanism for many of these private sectors to be able to pay? That's one aspect. Then two, when you say minimum wage, the essence is to enhance the living standard of those who are working and their families. But there are other people that are equally working that are not even getting up to the initial minimum wage. You understand? I'm talking about the casualized workers. So what are the mechanisms in place to ensure that those people that are being called casualized workers are taking off casualization and are actually given a job? In which case, if an organization cannot afford more than so number of workers, the organization doesn't take anybody as casualized worker, because in the face of international labor law, it is actually wrong to casualize any job, casualize any worker. Yes, you can take volunteers. If you take volunteers, you are taking volunteers. But when somebody is working with you every day, every time, the person deserves to be paid the actual wage that is in operation. And so NSC, beyond working on recommendations, needs to do more You understand? I'm even very surprised that somebody like Joe Ajero is being in the office and is not doing anything about casualized working in the media industry, because we are very notorious. Those of us in the media industry, we are notorious for casualizing workers. You understand? I know this because I've been part of it. So it is good that the federal government, the governors are now sitting down to look at, okay, fine, how do we manage the issue of minimum wage? Because you can't have the same minimum wage operating across the 36 states of the federation. Lagos State may decide to say, okay, can afford to pay 650. I can bet you Ekiti may not be able to pay that one sufficiently and still be able to carry on what you call development. The same thing with so many other states. So it is good that they are sitting together. They should look at it. But when it eventually happens, they should be able to educate the people, their workers, that look, okay, this the amount that we can afford to pay in my own state. Lagos may pay this. If you want to work in Lagos because you are looking for about 815,000 naira monthly to be paid, then you go to Lagos State. Now, if you want the benefit of staying in my peaceful state in Ekiti, and then you want to get access to fresh food, fresh everything, then you stay back here at the cost of giving you maybe like about 450,000 naira a month. So these are just some of the disparities that we got to witness in the minimum wage thing.
All right. What factors should the state government consider when determining what each state can afford?
The first one is ability to pay. Ability to pay for a state determines how you are able to sustain the amount you come up with. That's number one. Number two is the content of living. What are the elements that individuals in your state need to be able to live? You understand? I can tell you the realities of daily living in Lagos is different from the realities of daily living even in your state. So if you say you are given, let us say, transportation like NLC said, okay, fine, transportation is part of their component that they are considering. If you say you are giving 130,000 naira, 110,000 to somebody in Lagos as a cost of transportation for a month, somebody who lives in it does not need up to 110,000 naira to move. Somebody who lives in Kebbi State does not need 110,000 naira to move in a month. You understand? But the person living in Ekiti may need another thing, because here in Lagos, you may have electricity that is even maybe like about 12, 13 hours or 14 hours generation supply for a day. But the person in Ekiti may need to buy gasoline, that's petrol, to be able to power generator to be able to live. So you need more money for such person in the area of energy than in the area of transportation. So you have to look at what are the things that are enabling life in individual states. This is what the governors would have to look at, okay, to be able to come up with this minimum wage. And then too, you need to look at it. Many of the states, apart from a few, maybe like Rivers State, Ogun State, Lagos State, Kano, and maybe Kaduna to some fair extent, many of the states really lack any form of industry. The only thing they do are just the simple servants going to work, and then the rest of the people are doing what you can call peasantry business, like selling Coca-Cola, selling one or two things by the roadside, and the rest going to farming. So you need to look at it and you incorporate this other area of your economy into the minimum wage. You understand? If you look at just if a state is predominantly a civil servant state, then the bulk of your masses are into either petty business or into farming, then how do you ensure that the money you are throwing to the civil servants get captured in the economy to the extent that it can help the person in the farming community or the person in the business community? These are some of the things that the governors need to do. They cannot just, it's not going to be a one tablet application that will sort all our headache.
All right. When you look at the NLC's proposed 615,000 naira, they were saying that they had to propose that because they see it as a product of a painstaking effort through which the cost of living of Nigerian workers is being captured. What do you make of that?
Yeah, if you look at the process that they said they took before they came to 615, they said they sent out questionnaires to their various state offices. Then from there, those people there now distributed the questionnaire down the line. Well, the integrity of this research, I am not going to question because, but if we go by what we know in the country, I can tell you that research was not painstaking enough. You understand? I've just told you. Before coming to this amount, you understand, because they were talking about some other things that are not captured in that place. One of them is cost and data. You understand? The life of every Nigerian now, young and old, you understand, is linked to communication, telecommunication. In fact, that's one of the things that Nigeria is proud about, because our tele density in Africa is higher than almost any other country. You understand? Now, if you say a worker is not, I mean, when you are considering your minimum wage and you are not bringing in the cost of telecommunication and data access for an average worker in a particular state, then there is a defect in your calculation, because it is no longer a luxury. Telecommunication is not a luxury in Nigeria, because many offices are run in a remote version now. Okay, you can sit in your office, you can teleconference, you can do all kind of things, and then you need data to be able to do that. Many offices pay their workers what you can call charges and co. But there are so many others that are not. So when civil servants, I mean, when NSC or TUC are doing their calculations, they need to review it and say, okay, fine, this is an essential, this is a necessity that must be incorporated into that, instead of saying, okay, fine, we are just doing 615 and we included only the basic necessity. Yes, we included the basic necessities according to you, but there are some necessities that you are still living on. Let's take, for instance, we included clothing in that 615. Clothing is not essentially a necessity every month. In point of fact, it is an avenue for wastage. Okay, because I do not see why a worker will need to be buying clothes every month. You are encouraging corruption. You are encouraging wastages. You are encouraging damages to our climate. You understand? So, I mean, they all have interlinking connections. So that's what you should have, what you call system of management. Instead of clothing, why don't you bring in something like cost and data, so that workers will be able to work in an environment that enables them to have access to information.
All right. So, how do you suppose the NGF can communicate its decision to and engage with the working public, as on this issue?
When you look the NGF as Nigerian Governors Forum,
yes,
when you say communicating this decision to the working public, it is very simple. When you are talking about working public as only civil servants, okay, it has never been a problem for any governor to communicate to civil servants, because right there in the structure of governance, you have what you call the head of service. The head of service is the head of civil servants in every state of the in every state of the federation, yes. And there are internal memos and code that within in less than half a day, any decision taken by a governor can be communicated around to every worker in every state. So that's not a problem. But the one that is the problem is what we've been talking about. When you pay workers around 15,000 working a month, many of the workers do not have their own houses. You understand? Many have to rent houses. Of course, I'm aware that they put housing and accommodation in that their component. But how do you communicate to the landlords, to the house owners? You understand? Okay, fine. These are the considerations we took in while coming to this amount. Please, in your review of your own rent, do not go excessively high. You understand? I don't do that. Then this is where we now need the community-based organizations, the CBOs. You understand? Of course, you have civil society organizations who can equally partner with the state governors to be able to ensure that this information gets passed down all the way to every part of the state. But you need the engagement of the CBO, the civil service the civil society organizations as well, with that of NSA structure to be able to pass this information down. But we must always take note of the fact that civil servants are not the only workers in the state. So whatever arrangement we are making, we should only consider those who are working in the private sectors that are actually seriously being underpaid. That's why many people want the civil service job.
All right, moving on. It's been a week after federal government had given the assurances that the ongoing petrol supply shortage will ease, and most filling stations are still shut, and just some few outlets operated by major marketers. What are the underlying structural issues within the petroleum industry that needs to be addressed to prevent future occurrences of petrol scarcity?
We've been witnessing petrol scarcity now for well over 30 years or 20 years, you understand? Maybe about 30 years, you understand? But you find out there was a time when it was not a frequent occurrence in Nigeria. And what were the underlying structure or facility that was in place then that made it not to be an occurrence regularly in Nigeria? You find out that between 1980, if we go into research, between 1980, 1985, if I can recall, and 1990, thereabout, 1985 to 1995, there were series of attack on the facilities that enable proper distribution of products in Nigeria, petroleum products. And what am I talking about? Back then, we used to have what we call petrol depots placed across Nigeria. These depots were connected with pipelines. And then something went wrong in our polity. We started taking down all these facilities, pipeline breakage and damages, particularly by the people in the Niger Delta who were agitating for, initially it was resource control, later it became, there was some little agitation about, I'm not even sure it was about state, about having their own country or something. Well, initially it was about resource control. And then MEND came. That's a movement for the emancipation of Niger Delta people. And then a lot of damages went into the pipeline and then it got abandoned. Now, the refineries gradually grounded to a halt. And now we do not have ability to even produce 1 liter of any part of any kind of product in Nigeria. We have to bring them in. So when we bring them in, we have to rely on a number of factors like the exchange rate, the shipping cost, and all that. Now, until we go back to the capacity to produce on our own and being able to distribute on our own, we are not going to stop seeing what you call scarcity in Nigeria, because you are relying on another country entirely to be able to service your people. You cannot determine how much I move my product if I'm the one doing the shipping for you. I mean, Nigerians don't have shipping lines. We all killed it in the 80s. You understand? And then, if we don't get our refineries working, get the pipelines in place, and then it's good. Thank God the federal government is doing something in the area of rail development now. If we're able to get our rail development, our rail system to be properly coordinated and properly running, we'll be able to move some of these products from wherever easily without putting them into what you can call motorized tankers like that explode along the way and kill so many Nigerians here this time. So these are some of the facilities we need in place. Okay, the pipeline, the depot, and then the transportation system. If we don't get this in place, forget it. We're going to be dancing in a cycle.
All right, moving on. I mean, it's World Press Freedom Day, and the Nigerian Guild of Editors has insisted that the media freedom is crucial to democracy and must be at the heart of Nigerian government values and action. And the question is, what message would you like to convey to policymakers, journalists, and the public regarding the importance of preserving and promoting press freedom in our society?
I cannot agree more with the Nigerian, I mean, with the Guild of Editors on the need for press freedom for democracy, because without a free press, there is no way the society, the people can be actively governed. Now, what do you call press freedom is not just ability to be able to say things freely. No, that's not press freedom. That's not all about press freedom. That is inclusive. You understand? Yes, ability to communicate factual information from from government to the people. That is part of the freedom. But in addition to that, you need to look at what I mentioned earlier. How do the people who are working in the information industry, in the media industry, how do they live? What kind of life is enabled for them by the polity? Okay, that's part of the freedom. For instance, every journalist, every broadcaster, every supporting staff in the media industry have family. I mean, has family, and those families have to live. You understand? And when they live in, it demands money. It demands cost. Can the salary of any of the worker in the media industry actually enable a competent life for the family? No. There is no. We used to talk about take-home pay. No, that was before. There is no worker in the media industry today that can sustainably manage a family, because the cost of, I mean, the amount of money they are being paid is so small, considering the the environmental inflation in Nigeria. What kind of houses are available, facilitating housing accommodation facilities that are available to the press people? How about transportation? These are some of the things that you need for you to have a totally free press. A journalist or a broadcaster that will have to look at somebody for some handout of a sort, you understand, is not actually totally free. The information that such a journalist or such a reporter or such a broadcaster will bring out will be tainted, will be tainted with some kind of bias, because of the he who pays the piper, they say, usually dictate the tune. And that's why you have so much of a problem in our media industry today. But is there any concerted effort being taken? Of course, the Guild of Editors can only try domestically in their various organizations, but there is a need for a collective national policy that will be implemented by the federal government, by the state government, by the federal government, on how you run your media industry in Nigeria. And I bet this is the time that the federal government needs to look into giving the media organizations some kind of, I don't want to use the word bailout, you understand? But it's going to be something like a bailout, you understand? In which case, I mean, we still have very limited number of media industries in Nigeria. The federal government can intervene. They did. There was a time when federal government intervened in the Nollywood industry, you understand? And they gave them some support. Why can't we do it for the media industries? Why should a media organization engage journalists that you just give them your ID card and you say your ID card is your tool or your instrument to live? You understand? Of course, you don't expect any factual reporting from such organization. And so they bring all kind of people who are able to pay into the space. And then when they are telling Nigerians, they are actually causing disinformation and misinforming Nigeria. It happens both in the electronic, in the regular mainstream media, and then particularly in social media today, or not social media, the online media today. So we need to contain, we need to be able to control and manage this place before we can have entirely free press. Without that, forget it. Yes, the law could be there. We can talk about the Freedom of Information Press. You understand? If the Freedom of Information Act, The Freedom of Information Act could be there. Yes, I could have access to real, excuse me, I could have access to real information and certify this is it. But how I present the information matters. And the environment in which I present the information matters. So we need all this one before you can have effective, free press.
All right, so let's touch on Mr. and Mrs. before we go. And Mr. is speaking to his wife. He says, the man said, may God wipe crime away from our society. Your amen was the loudest. Do you realize that you are the wife of a lawyer?
That's the contradictions in life, you understand me? Because it's just like you are telling somebody who's making coffins to go to court and say, okay, yeah, God, please continue to keep our people alive. People should not die. Then somebody is going to die without prayer. The person making coffin will have to be without money to sustain the family. That's a good one. If you are a wife of a lawyer or a wife of a police officer, why should you say that God should wipe away crime? Because those people, those industries thrive on crime. If there's no crime, a lawyer, well, he doesn't have to be a criminal lawyer anyway. Does he?
Yeah, no, he doesn't.
It can have other aspect of the, but again, it doesn't matter any aspect of law that you are considering. You understand? It's still borders on breaking the law, and that's what the lawyer thrives on. If you don't break law in the property law, then there will be no lawyer, because they need to write you so that you don't do this one. It is when you do this one that they need to make their money. That's a nice one.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Rotimi Ajayi, former regional editor, North Vanguard Media Limited. Thank you for sharing your thought with us this morning.
Thank you so much for having me again.
Also, remember that you can equally like, share, and subscribe on all our social media platforms showing on your screen. To find up-to-date stories, go to our website, www.vanguardngf.com, to find out more. I am Precious Chukudi, and thank you for watching.